Hello, I'm Dominic Cuzo, and I have the privilege of serving as the pastor here at Bible Baptist Church in Ocean County, New Jersey. Very recently, Pastor Phil Rizzo and I have put together a ministry called Project 292. I'm currently serving as the president, and today, Phil Rizzo joins us as our spokesman and to tell us a little bit about the organization, the goals, the objectives of what Project 292 is trying to do here in New Jersey. So tell us, Phil, what's going on?
Thanks, Pastor. As somebody that has been a pastor here in New Jersey for a decade, and most recently ran for office twice over the last 3 years, I have a unique observation, vantage point to see what our problem is here in New Jersey with the faith community. It's threefold. Number one, we're not involved. If you're a faith leader or just a person who attends regularly to a ministry, do you know who your state senator is? Do you know either of your two assemblymen or assemblywomen? Do you know who your town council is? Do you know who your mayor is? How about some of your school board members? These are the people that are affecting the lives of people that sit in your ministry. We're just not involved. We're not engaged. Number two, we are not preaching good biblical citizenry. We are not doing it. We know that God created government in Genesis chapter 9. We know that God gave some principles for who should serve in leadership in Exodus 18. And even in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, is it unlawful for thou to beat a Roman? Uncondemned, he exercised his Roman citizenship when he was wronged to basically due process. So we're not involved. We're not engaged. Also, we're not teaching good biblical stewardship when it comes to our citizenry here in America. And lastly, and I think the most dangerous, is we're not preaching eternal biblical truth. I mean, the Bible principles that we see are never changing, yet political issues do. One example, probably the biggest one, is this issue of life and abortion. Life is a biblical issue, yet many pastors won't preach on it, won't teach on it, won't address the wonderful victory had with Roe v. Wade being overturned. They wouldn't mention it because they think it's political. It's not, it is biblical. The list could go on and on, from LGBTQ+++ to gender roles and gender identity. God created them male and female. National sovereignty is a biblical issue, and we have shied away from these things because they become hot button political topics. We need to get back to preaching the full counsel of God.
The sad truth is that though there is a majority of people of faith, many of them do not vote, do not know who to vote for, and some of them aren't even registered. Look, voter registration, civic involvement, these are not partisan issues. These are issues where any pastor is leading his ministry and is talking about having good biblical citizenship. The principles of just participating in the process is something that we should all be teaching, and we want to encourage folks to do just that. America saw and watched back in 2021 as a group of faith leaders in Virginia gathered together, they unified, they organized, and the leadership of Virginia went from someone who was openly speaking about killing a baby after it was born to now Glenn Youngkin is the governor of Virginia, and he holds values and respects the principles that someone who is living in the community of faith, trusting God with their lives, they're living for those things, and those things now align. But what happened? You had people organized, identifying a good candidate, and then getting involved. Well, the same year during the primary process in New Jersey, 2021, we saw the conservatives have the majority in that process. And we believe that going forward, if here in New Jersey, we would have a little more organization, a little more unification, we would not only see good conservative candidates winning in the primaries, but we could take them across the finish line in November.
We know some of those faith leaders in Virginia, and we talked to them, and we know the plan. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, we believe everything rises and falls on leadership. And if we are really going to be organized and intentional about it, we would like to, and we have been working with leaders in all 21 counties to put together a identification for the principles of the candidates, get organization of the churches and people of faith together, and then going forward in a unified way, representing our values all the way through the ballot box. This is something that we've seen the results of in Virginia and somewhat seen the results of here in New Jersey. We think we can take it all that much farther by being organized, all 21 counties here with Project 292.
We know the problem. We've identified it as a pastor and a candidate. We know what the problem is. We know the plan, and thank you for laying that out so clearly. So how can we participate? How can people watching this video get involved in participating with the plan?
So your participation begins first as we speak to God. God has given us access to Him through prayer. And if we believe that this is God's will, it's God's commandment, and God's people need to be involved in it, we need to talk to God about it. Let me encourage you, please spend time in prayer for your state. We need God's mercy and His guidance and His wisdom, both for those that are involved. There's a lot of temptation that's involved with these things. God has given us entrance into His throne. He said in times of trouble and in times of need, we can speak to Him. And so God's people need to bring this to God in prayer. And if you would first of all join us in seeking God's face and seeking God's help, that's what we need you to do right off the bat.
Also, as pastors, we've said from the pulpit, God does not need our money, but the ministry does. And Project 29.2 is a preaching ministry. It is a ministry that has needs like any other ministry, from creating video content like this, the organizational structure, getting those 21 county leaders in place, being able to manage data and communicate with faith leaders statewide does cost some money. And so we really could use your help, not only in prayer, but also financially.
You see, we might have the best candidates, the best principals, and we believe we even have the majority and the enthusiasm we're right on all of these issues, but it's only going to come together as we can spend the money to communicate that to people. There's a cost associated with it. And so would you consider making some kind of a donation towards this cause? We know not everyone can do big amounts of money, but everyone can do something. We preach this all the time as faith leaders, right? Support the ministry with your time, with your talent, and with your treasure. Look, from prayer to actually getting folks to give, and then as a ministry, what can you do? Well, there's a nonpartisan way for you to be involved. It's nothing partisan about registering the vote, nothing partisan about encouraging people to know their candidates, to know who's running, and to vote in that election according to their values. People need to be encouraged to be involved, and that can happen. Pastor Rizzo has been very well received all across this state and preached and encourage folks to do just that. Would you schedule a day where he can come in and preach and teach? It's been a blessing, I know, to my own congregation, and we've heard nothing but good reviews as it's been happening. Tell us a little bit about some of those days and where you've been able to go.
Well, I've zigzagged all over this state, preaching in dozens of churches, preaching biblical messages on these topics right here. I've also had some calls from Pennsylvania, got a chance to go down to Maryland to speak to a whole group of pastors all in one place. So people around the country want this. We are New Jersey heavy, make no mistake about it. But this is something that I would be honored and humbled to come to your church and preach a Bible message on how to be involved and how to bring about real change through the faith community.
Thank you so much for listening. And let me encourage you one last thing. If we believe serving God, living for Him, living according to our values is the number one thing, and as government encroaches slowly on these things, the second in line most important thing is to protect that, to be involved, to be obedient. So, from Pastor Rizzo and I, Project 292, let's all join in, let's all get involved. May God bless you, and thank you.
We know that famous quote. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing."
Thank you for joining us. May God bless you.
And now, our 2-year prayer report.